Yeah.
Oh, Jason, thank you for inviting me. I'm Antoinette Biggie, and I'm definitely an addict. You y'all supposed to say hello, Antoinette B. I'm used to, that come back. Well, I want to share about my experience. I was kind of like an anonymous member of Narcotics Anonymous. What I've done, my clean date is January 25th, 1982. Is that me?
No, that's you.
That's me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's you.
Well, you're on. We can see you.
No, I want this one right here in the middle.
Just share. We can see you. Everybody's screen's different.
It's a lizard. It's a lizard dragging something.
Yeah.
That's me right there.
You're there. Go ahead, Antoinette.
Okay, let me. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, I'm Antoinette B. I'm definitely that. I see you. I don't see me.
You're there. Trust me. Go ahead and share. Everybody can
Okay,
hear
I'm going to share. Okay, it's okay. I don't have to see me. That's okay. But I wanted to share. I followed the literature, and I've sit back and I've watched the literature. People were talking about not getting political, but I think somebody's going to have to step up to the plate. And who was an eyewitness? So I'm not going to share my opinion, because an opinion is like a button. Everybody got one, but it don't mean you got to show it. So I want to share what I was an eyewitness to what happened in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. I got a speech impediment. I don't know how it's going to come out, but it's going to come out some kind of way. I don't know if people heard about Back to the Basic. Let me see I don't know if you can see it. Back to the Basic. Can you see it? Anyway, I'm the author of Back to the Basic. I wrote some sheets in 1982. And I wrote inventory sheets for all 12 of the steps. Because we didn't have the basic text. I'm BC. I'm before the basic text, and I'm before crack. And so we knew that a basic text was being written, but I wanted us to do something that was different from the other fellowship. Okay, when I got clean, it was one Narcotics Anonymous meeting in my area. And if I went to another one, I had to go to Norfolk, to St. Mary's in Norfolk. But I got clean in Hampton, Virginia. And it was just one meeting there. And so I too wanted us to work our program different from the AA program. I wanted to work, and I felt that we should write on every step. And I got a lot of flack from people. They did not want to write on every step. When I got clean, we just had the little white book, and of course we used the big book too. But I did not want that. I felt that our disease was more intense, that we needed to have something different. So I was going through trying to get people to write, on the steps. And so when the basic text came out, okay, finally we got the basic text, but what did we do with it? We didn't know what to do with it. So that was when I wrote questions. It started out, you can't see it, but it's back to the basic. When I wrote the questions for paragraph by paragraph of Back to the Basic, where we were able to answer those questions, people were able to study the literature. And I had like about 24 girls I was sponsoring, and like we did tabletop recovery with each one separately. And it was just awesome. The first basic text was handwritten. My Back to the Basic, it was handwritten. And I remember, I think it was 85 when I typed it up. And after I typed it up, it was snail mail. And you know, snail mail is really slow. We didn't have the internet. Yeah. And so what happened was, it wasn't going that well. But what happened, somebody stole back to the basic. And they put Greg B's name on it. And when they put Greg B's name on it, it went now from my kitchen table to over 160 countries. And this guy named Dale, I don't know if y'all know Dale S. from the Upper Cumberland, he searched for me for 12 years. And after he searched for me for 12 years, I was shocked. He called me on my cell phone and asked me if this was Antoinette B. I don't know how he got my name, my cell phone. I don't know how he got me, but he found me. And I was excited because I never had nobody look for me for 12 years, you know. But anyway, he found me. And he was able to take back to the basic. And like I said, that was over 35 years ago. But one thing that was so devastating for me was when the experience that I had with the world. When I went to the world, and I thought that the World Service Office was a part of Narcotics Anonymous. So when I went to the world to try to get them so they would publish it to other Narcotics Anonymous members, and I got threatened. I received a letter in the mail, cease and desist. I got one of those. They threatened to like sue me for everything I had, because what I did was when I sent a copy of Back to the Basic, when I sent a copy of Back to the Basic, when I sent it to the World Service Office, I didn't know that they were not a part of Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't know that. And so what happened was, I went signing the papers because I wasn't going to sell out, because we cannot trust them. We cannot trust them with our literature. And we have a long history with them, because they talk about the Great Book. This is what I use with my species. I use the Great Book, and I use the 5th edition. This is the 6th. This is 6th, but I use the 5th edition of the basic text. I use this is the 5th edition. I use of the basic text because we've used the 5th edition for over 20 years. So that's the edition that I use of the Blue Book, but I use the Great Book. And so what happened when the first basic text came out, they had changed everything that we had wrote. They changed it. I'm talking about the World Service Office. So after the World Service Office, they took out Tradition 4 and Tradition 9. About it. Everybody was upset about it, so we made them put it back in. I got the 2nd tradition. This is a small copy. This is the edition that was made from the draft that was Congress approved. And they might call it, they got this. So then they turned it back and they did the 3rd edition. And when they did the 3rd edition, they took the 4th and 9th tradition out again. And what Greg P. had said during that time in 1984, he recommended that we need to look at our service structure and reorganize our service structure. He suggested that we eliminate the World Service Board and the World Service Office, because they were not serving our fellowship. And if you don't believe me, it's written, because the letter that he wrote in response is written. And he suggested that we eliminate them. Now, we're going through a time right now, through the virus. And this is our chance to shut them down. Because the World Service Office, they took our name in 1998 which was a direct violation. We're not supposed to lend. We're not supposed to we're not supposed to lend our name. We're not supposed to finance. We're not supposed to, you know, give these people money. Violation of Judicial 6. We're not supposed to be giving anybody our money. Number 2, we're not supposed to be lending our name to any outside fellowship or any outside enterprise, any related fellowship or outside enterprise. So this mess we're in is because of a direct violation of all of our traditions. Now, when Greg Pierce recommended that we eliminate the World Service Board and the World Service, and this is what I witnessed, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who witnessed this. He said that if we didn't do it, if we didn't make a decision, he said we could not take this thing lightly. He said that if we did not make a decision, he said we were going to regret this later. That's what's happening right now today. And what I'm saying is, they're on Zoom begging for money. They're begging for money. Let me tell you why they're begging for money, because they're a business. A business cannot live without money. And what has happened during this situation where basically the whole world is standing still, Narcotics Anonymous is alive and well, because Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women. We ain't missed a beat. The addicts are still coming together. We're still, because we are the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. We're going to make it. Because we are not based on money, property, or prestige. Now, when Nas took our name, they said everything in place, and I was sitting back, and this is what I experienced. I experienced them take the book, and they changed the book. Then they changed it back to the 2nd edition. Then they changed it to the 3rd, and they took it out. Jason, can you read the 4th tradition? Because I want the people to hear, because if you ain't got a great book, you don't know what I'm talking about. Because what Greg says was that the 4th and 9th traditions are fundamental concepts of the nature and the function of the Narcotics Anonymous Fellowship. Jason, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I want you to read for me, because I got a speech impediment. I want the people to really hear this. I want you to read in the great book, the tradition 4, and I want you to read I want you to read the tradition, and then I want you to read the 2nd paragraph.
Okay, tradition 4. Each group should be autonomous except in affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 2nd paragraph, just to the 2nd paragraph, right?
Okay.
2nd paragraph. But we said that for NA autonomy was more like this, and it is. For us in Narcotics Anonymous, autonomy is also creative freedom. It gives our groups the freedom to act on their own, to establish their atmosphere of recovery, to serve their members, and to fulfill their primary purpose. It is in this aspect of autonomy that makes it one of our most precious principles. It is the reason that we guard our autonomy so carefully.
And what I ask, are we truly autonomous? Do you see that?
We are autonomous, and from what we have said, it would seem that we and our groups can do whatever we decide to do regardless of what anyone says. Well, yes and no. Each group has complete freedom, except when their actions become a threat to other groups and the rest of NA. This is the other half of the tradition 4. The way that we use our autonomy is just as important as the autonomy ourselves. Like group conscience, autonomy is a two-edged sword. In the past, group autonomy has been used to justify a violation of our traditions. This should never be allowed to happen, as we have spiritual principles are never in conflict with other spiritual principles.
Okay, so when we looked at, when we talk about that we are autonomous, they want to know, are we truly autonomous? They talked about the groups, They talk about our service centers, our committees. They talk about everything. And this tradition says the answer is no. These service centers and these committees, they are not a part of Narcotics Anonymous. Now, I can understand why they kept taking that out of our traditions. And also about a group autonomy is that we, as being an autonomous group, we can accept the service or not accept the service. So just because we have the service centers, they can't tell us what to do. What about Tradition 9? They keep taking tradition. They took Tradition 9 out 3 times. Can you read Tradition 9 in the great book?
Okay.
Jason,
Yeah, I'm here.
it starts off with the 9th tradition.
I'm on the 9th. I'm going to the 9th tradition right now. So give me a second.
Okay.
I'll read the 9th tradition for you from the gray. Tradition 9. NA as such ought never be organized. We may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. This tradition defines the way we run our fellowship. A lot of confusion has occurred because of the misinterpretations of our 9th tradition. Our members are addicts who have the desire to stop using, who want what we have to offer, and who have chosen to join us. Our meetings are gatherings of members for the purposes of staying clean. Our principles are the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. Another point of confusion is the term organize, which has several meanings. Our steps and traditions are uniform and set in a specific order. They are numbered. They are not random and unstructured. Certainly, they are organized, but this is not the organization of our 9th tradition. For the purpose of this tradition, organization means having an administrative structure, and it implies management and control. On this basis, the meaning of Tradition 9 is clear. NA should never be run by bureaucracy or management, nor controlled by individuals within an administrative structure. If we were allowed to do this, NA would surely lose the best it has to offer and choke to death on our own insanities.
Right.
Even without this tradition, organization such as this would be in opposition to our spiritual principles. A loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience, would find no place in an administrative structure. How could a trusted servant manage and control? Service and management are in contradiction. Government implies control, but our leaders do not govern. How could autonomy exist in an administrative structure? Specialization and professionalism are the basis of any management scheme. Any management structure, by the very nature, eliminated the possibility of autonomy. An organized NA is in contradiction to terms, and any attempt to force organization on us would destroy us. The 9th tradition goes on to define the nature of things that we can do outside NA to help NA. It says that we may create service bodies or committees directly responsible to those that they serve. This is the basis of our service structure. But keep in mind that although these entities are created to serve our fellowship, they are, in fact, not part of Narcotics Anonymous. Our service structure consists of groups and their business sense. Our area service committees, regional service committees, world service committees, world board of trustees, and world service office. Each of these is directly responsible through the service structure to the members of NA and to a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Okay, that's step 9. I'll check out.
That's right. Thank you, Jason. And none of them have the power to rule, to censor, to decide, or to dictate. Now, that's why we're in the situation that we are in. Because we are in direct violation of our traditions. Now, what I've sat back and I've witnessed when the 4th edition came out. A lot of people don't know that the director of, I would call it NAS, but of Narcotics Anonymous Service Center makes over $250,000 a year. I'm talking about the executive director. In Narcotics Anonymous, we don't have presidents, we don't have managers, and we don't have directors. But we paying an executive director $250,000 a year of 7 tradition basket money. We got the assistant executive director making $190,000 a year. And they told us, I guess, through the virus, they'll take a 10% cut. Now we around here, we running how we're gonna feed our children to pay our rent. They said, well, what we'll take, he said, well, we'll take $225,000 a year. And she said, I'll take $171,000 a year. 90% of the money that Narcotics Anonymous is sending to the world is going in somebody's pocket. And you want to know why are we in the situation that we're in? We have our traditions that are not negotiable. But what happened in 1989, they take the service tree, we had the service tree, and they threw it away. They rewrote our service structure. And in 1989, they put something in there that I know we didn't vote on, but it's in there now. And what they put in there was that we could only use conference-approved literature in our meetings. That means that we can only use literature that Narcotics Anonymous Service Center, that they have printed and that they sell. Now, when I was talking about, okay, here is the problem. We have the director of NAS, who is also the treasurer for a nonprofit, which is the leading leader in treatment centers industry. So we got somebody who is with Narcotics Anonymous and treatment centers. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. In 1985, NAS took $400,000 from Hazelden to write our literature. They got an advance. On the money for the literature that they were going to serve. They wrote our literature. They took our third tradition and they rewrote it. They took our third tradition and rewrote it. And they wrote it. Here's what I'm gonna tell you what we voted on. We voted for them to update our readings. And we voted for them to do like if they saw numerical or typographical errors. Now that's what we voted. Now I'm a witness. I'm not going to hear all this fairy tale. I hear a lot of, I don't want to call them lies because it's the misinformed, informed and the misinformed. But I was here, I know what happened, okay? Now we asked them to update our readings and to correct the grammar and correct the spelling. Hazelden rewrote our basic text. I'm serious. And we were up in arms. The world had no choice but to back down. So that's how we got the 5th edition. We got that pretty quick. But they still did not put tradition 4 and tradition 9 in there. The one that says that they cannot rule, they cannot censor, they cannot control, they cannot direct, they can't tell us what to do. And the thing that gets me, okay, we going through the coronavirus and they could care less whether we live or die. They're trying to do a poll right now to get us to vote to see if we can stop people from copying our own literature. So they don't want us to copy our own literature. If we copy our own literature, that money does not go in their pockets. So it talks about when we endorse, finance, or lend our name to any related facility or outside, what happens? This is what we're going through now. We've been diverted by money, property, and prestige. Now, you read in Tradition 9 that the principles of Narcotics Anonymous are the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. The 12 steps and the 12 traditions, not the 12 concepts. But after they put that we can only use literature that they sell in our meetings, we were doomed at that point when they put that in there and we didn't vote for it. They put it in there that we can only use literature that they sell. So that means the only literature we can use in our meetings is the literature that Hazelden wrote and not us is selling. That's what y'all addicts, y'all better wake up. This is not progress. It says our common welfare must come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. We got to come together. And what's splitting us up, part of the fellowship is following the traditions, and the other part of the fellowship is following the 12 concepts. And I saw it when it happened. A lot of people don't understand that we had 12 members on the board of trustees. And then, no, they had 12 members. Okay, so we had the concepts in place for those 12 members to represent us. We delegated them, we sent them out so that we would have a voice in us. When they kicked us off, them traditions, them concepts, they should have died. But what we did, I think it was 1991, and I remember this specifically, even though I think it came out in 1995. They took the concepts that we had for the people who was on the board of trustees, and they said that it was going to separate the groups from our service structure. Okay, so when they added concepts, they said, okay, it's going to stabilize us. It says, just like the steps are for your personal recovery, and it stabilizes your life. You're going to sleep now, you're going to sleep. Then they said, okay, now here's the traditions. The traditions, they're just to stabilize your group. They said, but the concepts are the practical application of the traditions. Not realizing, let me tell you why the concepts have no place in our fellowship. The concepts, the place for the concepts, they're how we deal with people that don't follow our traditions. But why would we give that to service centers who work for us? Why would we give that to our area service? Why would we separate? It says to give them the freedom. That's what the concept says. To give them the freedoms so that they don't have to answer directly to us. And it doesn't say that. It says to give them the freedom so they can effectively and responsibly do their job. The tradition says that we may create service centers and special committees, but they are directly responsible to those they serve. The concept says, no, they're separate. They don't have to answer to us for anything. So I see the split, and I saw it coming when they told us we can only use the literature that they write, Hazelden writes, and they sell. That means we can't use the right book in our meetings. That's what that means. I was in a meeting, and I was reading from my book. This is my book right here. And somebody, a newcomer, I think he had about 7 or 8 years, he said, "Oh, what edition is that?" He said, "That's obsolete." He said, he said, "Old school." He said, "Old school." He said, "You can't read that in this meeting." He said, "Because when they conference approved this book, Sixth edition. He said that book is obsolete. It don't make sense. It don't. But it all started when they started changing our literature, when they changed the basic text, and they refused to say that the service committees and centers or whatever that we make are directly responsible for us, and they are not a part of us. For our group conscious, there is but one ultimate authority. It is a loving and caring God. One. Right now, Nas is the ultimate authority. You better wake up. You wonder what's wrong. Because God has been replaced with a business. And I'm even hearing people on the regional level talking about, well, we're going so big that we're a business. No, we're not a business. You can tell you, look at us right now. This, what you see on these Zooms, what you see on these TV screens and what you see on these cell phones, they are the fellowship. We are the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. But they sold us out for $400,000 to Hazelton to write our literature. Okay, we wrote how it works. We wrote how it works. We Congress approved it in 1987. We gave it to them to print. They put it in the trash. And they wrote this. Hazelton wrote this. And they put Narcotics Anonymous' name on literature that Hazelton wrote. Right here. Hazelton wrote this. And what Tradition 6 says, the Tradition 6 does say about the literature that we can use in our rooms. It says that we cannot use literature, speakers, or announcements from other fellowships. It says that. We can't use literature or speakers or not. That's the only thing it says. And it talks about also in Tradition 6. You better read these traditions. You caught up in these concepts. The tradition's talking about these outside enterprises and all this stuff. This is an outside enterprise that's popping treatment center in our rooms. And what I'm seeing, I have never seen this. I got 38 years clean. I got one white tag. This is my white Narcotics Anonymous tag, one tag. And I'm not counting clean time and pissing dirty. I'm clean. And they talk about we don't have no opinion on no outside issues. Now let me tell you how far Narcotics Anonymous has gone. They're having like workshops. Workshops, you hear me? People sitting there, doctors, lawyers, judges, treatment centers, coming in there and telling us about Suboxone and methadone. That is definitely an outside issue. And we should not be writing any literature. But I know Hazelton, they get in place, they're gonna write the literature and put our name on it. They talk about our reputation. That's why they talk about we have no opinion. Because we have a good reputation. Because when I got clean, and the basic text said they have never seen an addict fail who's living the program of Narcotics Anonymous. You can't say that right now. We got addicts, poor things, they come to meetings, they work in steps, they get with their sponsors, and they relapse and they can't stay clean. They can't stay clean because they don't have the spiritual principles. The spiritual principles, they are not in this book. The spiritual principles that make our recovery possible. It's in this book. And it's in this book right here. This is the second edition. The second edition, what we wrote. The spiritual principles that make our recovery possible. It's honesty. It's open-mindedness. It's willingness. It's hope. Hope, acceptance, surrender, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, faith, tolerance, patience, humility, unconditional love, sharing and care. That's not in this book. We got the journey continues. We wrote living clean. What we wrote, they took it and put it in the trash. Now I'm telling you what I've seen. I'm not telling you my opinion. I'm not telling you what I think and what I feel. I'm telling you what I know for a fact. That book took God out, and it mentions the steps, but it took the steps out too. And what it says in that book is, we're human, we're not perfect. So they say we don't recover. When they describe them addicts in that book, there's no active change in the attitude, the ideas, or behavior. They pumping us with this dope literature. This dope literature is killing us. Our common welfare must come first. We can't have them putting this poison in our fellowship. It says we tried psychiatrists, we tried recovery houses. It said it had failed. The only thing that worked for me, because I was a dope fiend of the worst variety. I can't tell you when I stopped using the drugs and the drugs started using me, but my life became unmanageable. And it was at that point, I don't care how low I went, I couldn't hit bottom because hell don't have a bottom. Hell has no bottom. But when I came to Narcotics Anonymous, for the first time in my life, I was able to stop using, and I was able to stay stopped. When I came here, people were living by spiritual principles. And in Tradition 9, it says the principles of Narcotics Anonymous are the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. It ain't got no concepts in there. Because that is not a part of Narcotics Anonymous. They came out, okay, first, see, that's how they're getting us is through our literature. I heard the newcomer talk about why every 2 or 3 years we get new literature. Because book publishing companies, if they don't sell books, they don't make money. What about our common welfare? What about our common welfare coming first? So we got people who could care less whether we live or we die. And we put money in their pockets. Their hands so deep in our pockets, but I tell you right now, we got a choice right now. Do you want to keep giving them money? It says that we don't finance, we don't endorse, we don't finance. We don't give up. Are you willing to keep giving your money to somebody who's made a slave out of you? Now, it's a shame. I heard it on PBS last year. You know what they said about 12-step programs? They said that 12-step programs do not work. Now, that was a sad day when I saw that. People coming to Narcotics Anonymous and it does not work. That's why I've read all the literature. I've done this right here 18 times. And you know what? We're doing all this literature. I got the other literature too. We're doing all this literature. We are very smart, intelligent addicts. But the thing that was so powerful about this is one thing that took us down. Because number one, it's not the program of Narcotics Anonymous. It doesn't have anything to do with the basic text. You ain't gonna get no hope, acceptance, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, faith, tolerance, patience, humility, unconditional love, sharing, and caring. Those are the spiritual principles that make our recovery possible. Without those spiritual principles, we do not recover. I'm serious. This is why addicts walking about here. I'm serious. They can out-talk me. When they talk, I just shut up because I know they're drinking the Kool-Aid. When I say they drink, and then we got the people in the service positions who's supposed to be standing up for us. They drinking the Kool-Aid too. When I said they drunk, I could care less about our traditions. But the traditions are not negotiable. We even got new literature. We got new literature. It's called the Guiding Principles. That's right, new literature. But our basic text says the traditions are not negotiable. How can we sit and rewrite the traditions? That doesn't make sense, does it? if they're not negotiable, how can you rewrite them? And throw the concepts in there too that separate the service structures from the groups and give them freedom to do their own business effectively and responsibly without responding directly to us. They're supposed to be service centers, they're directly responsible to those they serve. So when I'm talking about this, when I'm talking about the only requirement for membership is a desire. Nobody can measure your desire. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. And if anybody has a desire, we got a lot of NA cliques and NA families. And if you don't belong to those cliques and those families, guess what? You're an outsider. Direct violation of our traditions. Any addict, regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion, even if they ain't got no religion, you're welcome in Narcotics Anonymous. And when in 1989, when they said that we can only use the literature that Hazelden writes and that the world sells, when they said that, they had us, because none of our literature that was written for addicts and by addicts is in our rooms. And when I bring it up, I had this newcomer, I think he got 6 or 7 years. He shut me down. He said, that's controversial. I said the word great book because I wrote some questions. I wrote some questions for Back to the Grave. So how we can use the great book and study it. I looked at the great form that they had for studying the great book. My girl sponsor told me to do the step work out of that, so I take suggestions. So I got the great book and I got that great form and I wrote, and it's written up, and it's made up exactly just like this book. It's a personal inventory. So people who got like 21 years clean, they have this program. They don't have this program. They got this program. We got 5 different programs. We got 5 different literatures that says 5 different things, and we wonder why we got a problem. But I sit back and I watched when they sold us out for $400,000. The world did that. Now, the world is in $1.8 million. $8 million, that we need to cut them loose. That's why we need to listen to what Greg P told us in 1984, that we needed to eliminate them. And this is the perfect time. If we don't send them money, their business, guess what? They're going to go out of business. Just like all these other businesses going, they will go out of business. The only one that's keeping the people alive is us. Now, this is a choice. Are we going to let them rule over us, or a loving and caring God, the ultimate authority? It's no way. They give us, okay, they give us the car report. They give us stuff to vote on. The stuff that they know is not going to pass, they table it. So they make the agenda, and guess what? They count the votes too. That's like having a fox in a hen house. You know a fox can't guard no chickens, if you know anything about chickens and foxes, because the fox will eat the chicken. So they give us what, and they tell us what they want us to do. We work for them. They pimping us and prostituting us just like the dope dealer did when we were doing dope. That's right. But God is showing us something. Right now, the world is not in control of us. And guess what? The fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous is still alive and well. We ain't missed a beat. We still having our meetings. We still coming together. We are still doing service work to the best of our ability, and they are getting poor and poor and poor because they need our money. They begging for money. So God sometimes will let situations and conditions show us what the truth is. The truth is that Narcotics Anonymous can live without the world, but the world cannot live without Narcotics Anonymous. If people talk about, well, if we lose it, what we gonna do? We're gonna do what we're doing right now. We're gonna do it because Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women for whom drugs have become a problem. And that's what we do. We're doing just what we do. We come together, and we help each other stay clean. And we talk about our primary, see, all this fighting, they call it controversy. The people who are following the concepts don't want to hear about the traditions. We don't have but one primary purpose, and it's not to give the money out and use their Hazleton literature that they sell in our meetings. So the people, they kind of like got it backwards. They're telling us we can't use the Gray Book, we can't use the Baby Blue. They're telling us we cannot use Narcotics Anonymous literature in our rooms that were written for addicts and was written by addicts. But we can use the literature that Hazleton wrote, that this book publisher sold us in our meetings, no matter even if the addicts are dying every day. And guess what? The death toll continues to rise. That's right. I'm glad that this situation happened, because this is the only way that we can see the truth for ourselves. Open up your eyes and let higher power show you the truth. People are talking about progress, and when I hear these people coming in with these stories, well, the people they didn't want the literature, they voted not to accept it. We did not. I was a witness. I know what happened. We had to take them to court to fight them for the right to have our own literature. Anyway, so I'm talking about this, but when I talk about when they took that money, it was a lot changed when they started letting Hazleton write our literature. But here's the thing: if the director is in the bed with Narcotics Anonymous, in bed with the treatment centers, he got them writing literature for treatment centers and putting our name. So what about we don't lend our name? These people should not be putting our name on their treatment literature so that they can make money. So at some point, our primary purpose is to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. And the message of Narcotics Anonymous is that any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use to find a new way to live. Now, they're telling us that we cannot stop using drugs. We have to use drugs to stop using drugs. I was sitting in the meeting, I think maybe out of 40 people, it was about 2 or 3 of us in there in this meeting that I went to where they were not on replacement drugs. They called it what? Drug replacement therapy or stuff like that. And so I know that's coming down the line, but they're gonna get us to vote on it because they're already working on the literature. That we can use drugs. The only people who really fighting for the right to use drugs, let me tell you who's fighting for the right to use drugs. It's not the addicts like me. I'm clean. I'm street clean and I'm strip clean. The addicts who are fighting for the right to use drugs are the addicts who are using drugs. But they want to use drugs and count clean time. It ain't about our common welfare comes first. Personal recovery depends on innate unity. That's why we can't get the personal recovery, because we got people over here, they want to use drugs and count clean time. So when I'm looking at, I'm sitting back, I'm watching. And I've been watching for 38 years as this scenario, it unfolds. And I know that I'm not the only one who's watching, but when we try to talk, when I say we, the people who know the truth, they shut us down. And they tell us that the meetings is not the place to come in and tell the truth about what happened. So when I was going to go another way. I wanted to share something else about the history. I wanted to share about writing back to the basic and, you know, how we was trying to get it out. And I wanted to share, I was on the circuit for 25 years. Dutch was the one to pull me up. I'm over 65 years old. I'm an old lady. I'm a little old lady. Just like the old men y'all saw, I'm an old lady. And I was with Blade. I was with Doreen and with Carmelita. Yeah, we were going around sharing the world. Thank God. You know, I'm sorry they're gone, but I'm still here. Thank God, I'm still here. And I'm here to tell you what happened. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about when I went to Canada. I went to Canada. I was in Toronto. But I went to Toronto, Canada. I went to a meeting. It was, my name is Antoinette. It was on Antoinette Street. I went out on Antoinette Street and I walked for a mile down Antoinette Street in Toronto. And when I got to the meeting, I had my little, my basic, that's when they sold me to sit in the back. And it was a whole bunch of us back there. When I said us, it was addicts. So it was the AA people were in the front of the room and all the addicts were in the back of the room. And what we could do was we could listen, but we couldn't speak in their meetings. And they were speaking French. You know, at that time, I don't know if they still, but they were like 90% of people in Toronto, they were speaking French. And so what person, the little guy beside me, he was, you know, telling me what they were saying. But I made an announcement to everybody who was the addict stay after the meeting. And this is the book I had too, when I had that. And I had this book. And what I did was I showed them how to have a meeting. And I went back every 6 months and I went to Toronto, I went to Montreal. And I started some of the first Narcotics Anonymous meetings in Montreal. That's what I wanted to talk about. I went to Jamaica. I went to Richmond Hill and I started some meetings there. I went to Valdosta, Georgia. And I went to Perry, Georgia, and I started some meetings there. So I'm just saying, wherever I went, I was starting Narcotics Anonymous meetings. That's what I wanted to talk about, what I had contributed to the fellowship. But when I got caught up, I heard so many people trying to find out what's happening. Our only salvation is to go back to our traditions, because the traditions are the ties that bind us together. So we talk about the message of the addict. Any addict can stop using drugs. I already talked about Tradition 6 when I was talking about we not endorsing, financing, or giving our name, you know, to anybody like that. And so a lot of times people want to come out and they want to talk to us and they want to tell us stuff. I'm trying to find out. They wanted, did I get? Oh, I didn't. So we are fully self-supporting. We're fully self-supporting. We claim outside contributions. We don't have to worry about that. The world ain't gave us a dime. So we don't have to worry about getting no outside contributions from Narcotics Anonymous, our service office. We don't have to worry about getting no money from them. And we're talking about we're forever non-professional. That's right. But even though we can create service centers who are directly responsible for those they serve. That tradition, when we got to concepts, those people are not directly responsible to us, because basically they have the freedom now. That's right, they have the freedom. And but it's not just with the service. I noticed that the concepts are more powerful because it's more people who are following, I think. I might be wrong. The concepts where it's like politics, where you vote. They said, well, we voted unanimous, we won, boom. I mean, what happened to God conscious? And here's what the thing about the traditions, what the traditions do. The traditions, if anything is a violation of our traditions, we say it's not spiritual, it's not God. We shut it down. The concepts don't shut it down. because the concepts are not about God. The concepts are not about anything that's spiritual. The concept is about business. And these people are trying to turn all of Narcotics Anonymous into a business. At one time, they had us voting that they hold all our money. Don't that sound like somebody trying to rip you off? You know, in your personal common sense, would you let somebody put their name on your checking account, take your name off, and you keep putting your money into it? But anyway, that's definitely another story. So they talk about that we're not organized. When we talk about not being organized, we cannot be autonomous. Like it told us in tradition, for each group is autonomous. When it talks about each group being autonomous, what that means is we are self-governing. That means nobody can tell us what to do in our group. What we do in our groups is we create the atmosphere of recovery that is for our personalities in our group. Because the atmosphere of recovery is our most valued asset. That's what tradition 2 tells us. You know why the atmosphere of recovery is our most valued asset? It's our most valued asset because without the power of God, we do not recover. So you got the concept, ain't no God in that, ain't no power in that. They don't care about no ultimate authority. It's a vast difference between our opinion and our conscious contact being expressed through us as God reveals himself to us. And people want to know what's wrong with them. I sit back and I watched after we sold out to them. And now when we're talking about taking the world to court, a petition, or you ought to see the people they fighting, they going crazy, they going mad. That's right. June 8th, we were supposed to be in court, but I know that's not going to happen. But maybe we don't need to take them to court. Maybe we need to stop, like it says, we don't endorse or finance any related facility or outside enterprise. We need to stop giving them money. That's right. Stop giving them money and see what happens. Because we tried to do that about 30 years ago. We did. The people in New York, they was leading us. The New York people said, we're not giving the world another time. But we couldn't stop the rest of the fellowship from giving the world money. So they kept giving them money. So the people kept on taking the money. They wasn't saying, no, we're not going to take $250,000 or $195,000 for 2 salaries. Not going to talk about travel, you know, the food in the hotel, and to get there. No, they wasn't going to hear that. So basically, that was what I wanted to share. So when we're talking about us not having an opinion on outside issues, that's a big one. We can ready to write literature about that. Now, I want you to think about how you're going to vote when they put this thing out and asked you about maintenance drugs. Now, when I think about maintenance drugs, my last 3 years of using, my drugs had stopped working. I don't know about you, but it wasn't working. I was doing that maintenance using, that second job using, where I was just using so I wouldn't get sick. I was just using so I could go to work. I was just using so I could function. And they're saying, we're going to say, this is what we're going to do, but we're going to do it legal. You know, we're going to hook these people on some legal drugs. And one thing, they can use drugs, they won't be getting high, but they won't be going to jail. That's an outside issue. We don't have nothing to do with that. We don't have nothing to do with what the treatment centers do. But see, because we got hesitant with treatment literature in our rooms, it's no separation. It is no separation, none whatsoever. And we wonder why the addicts are dying and they're taking, and I'm seeing before we were drug crazed maniacs, now we just crazed maniacs. You look at an addict who ain't got no dope and ain't got no recovery. they still reduced to the animal level. And guess what animals do? They rip each other to shred, and they bite and they devour. That's right. And this is what the newcomer is coming into. Talking about our newcomer is the most important one. If they make it, we run them back out. Because the concepts is fighting against the traditions. Concepts direct violation to tradition 9. The only principles we have, 12 steps, 12 traditions. So when I talk about that, about us, you know, what happened, I was trying to think, I was looking for something, I wrote something down, and I can't find what it was I was looking for. But I just wanted to say that our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. What, are you telling me to wrap it up?
Yeah, we got a couple more minutes to open up the question and answer.
Okay. So attraction, not promotion. And then we talk about the anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Okay. He had to tell you to shut me down because I was just getting warmed up. Y'all got to Antoinette light. And if y'all ever want Antoinette B, make sure she has her clean date is January 25th, 1982. I'm a Antoinette B. Thanks for letting me share.
All right. So,
Just
okay, let's get back to
Class, he is.